Welcome to Seltzer Squad, the podcast about staying sober in the city, with your hosts, Kate Sander and Jess Valentine.
Jess, what do people do if they want more Seltzer Squad?
Oh, well, it's pretty easy. All they have to do is become a Patreon.
Patreon? A patron? A Patronus?
A patron on our Patreon.
If you want to be a Princess FOMO, you'll get early access to our episodes every Wednesday instead of Friday. If you want to subscribe to our middle tier, Former Hot Mess, you will receive the bonus monthly audio episode and early access to episodes. And if you indeed are the slickest bitch around, you will get early access, monthly bonus episodes, and you will be able to see all of our episodes now in video format.
This is truly a labor of love, and we want to keep it going. So help support us at patreon.com/Seltzer Squad. Hey, Kate, what is the number one sober tool that we always recommend?
Therapy.
And we have recently partnered with BetterHelp. Do you want to tell everyone what that's about?
So BetterHelp is an online mental health platform. Basically what it is, it's an app that you get access to therapists. So you take their short quiz, they match you with somebody in your area, and it's affordable private counseling for individuals and couples anytime, anywhere. You don't even have to leave your house. You don't even have to wear hard pants.
That is amazing.
And what are we giving our listeners?
10% off. Just go to betterhelp.com/Seltzer Squad.
Hello, Kate.
Hi, Jess. You have your hand raised. I'm going to lower it.
Why does it say that? Oh,
There you go.
why? How does that happen? Is that if I actually raise my
questions.
hand? But how do you do that on Zoom? I don't even know, but it does it anyway.
Okay. I want to talk about Instagram, sober Instagram versus sober reality.
Okay, let's do it.
So I had talked to another podcaster recently, shout out to Dylan from The Sober Gay, and we were chatting just about pod stuff and social media, etc. And it just got me to thinking about what sobriety looks like on Instagram versus what sobriety looks like in real life. And I feel like you and I can dispel some of the rumors, because I feel like sober Instagram is like a super light, airy, happy place with a lot of motivation and
inspirational quotes.
Yeah. And it's like I don't want to say toxic positivity because it's not, but it's sort of like sometimes to me, it feels like the trauma is wrapped up in a neat bow. And
yes,
I'm here like 5+ something years later sober, and I still very much feel like sobriety can be very messy. And then also just thinking about what I thought sobriety was going to be like in the beginning, in the early days, and what it actually is, like fast forward to teenage sobriety, or I don't know what I consider adolescent sobriety. It's very different. Like what I thought success looked like at the beginning versus now. And so I kind of just wanted to get your hot takes on, what do you think about sober Instagram? I mean, obviously we're talking about like the entirety of it. So,
yeah,
I
think that there's always those Instagram versus reality things, and memes. And it's just like Instagram is very cookie cutter and fake. It's just fake. And so people only show their best moments and their best faces on Instagram. And like, that's totally like true. We all do that. No one's going to be like, I'm going to post this ugly photo of myself. Like, or, I'm having a really bad day. Let me post, I don't know. Some people do post themselves crying. That's a whole other thing. But for the most part, we romanticize our lives and romanticize things and make it look really pretty and curated and aesthetically pleasing. And I think that people just do that also with the sobriety when it comes, on online sobriety and stuff. And I think that it's just habit. I don't know, like everyone wants to look like they're living their best life, and no one wants to post the ugly.
Yeah.
The
I think
hard.
There's it's like proving that you're winning at it or something is like the feeling that I get sometimes. And I know that, people have reached out to us and been like, how come you don't put more Instagram content up? And it's like, well, number one, it leverages a lot of time. And I think also we kind of came to a point where we were doing that and it felt like we were doing it just to do it. And I don't think that it was necessarily being helpful. And there are wins in my sobriety and there are losses in my sobriety. I choose to talk about it on the podcast that I put out. I don't necessarily know that like people need redundant reminders of that on Instagram. It just kind of felt like also we need to just leave more space for other people to say stuff. So I don't necessarily know if like ours was just extra fucking noise, but
right.
It just feels like the Pinterest version, and it would make me feel bad about myself because, you know, sometimes my sobriety looks like not brushing my teeth or getting out of bed that day, and that's still winning. And
yeah,
you know, especially in the early days, it just felt like it was dark and it was lonely and it was sad and shameful. And yeah, I've come out of that and I've had, you know, wins and ups and downs, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit detrimental for my sobriety to not look at that stuff now.
Yeah. I mean, also, you know, I used to be really big on Instagram and posting every aspect of my life and everything. And I'm not in that place.
Mm-hmm.
I did that mostly when I was out drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if those go hand in hand, but it's like my life's not that interesting where I need to be posting everything. Like some people like think they need to post everything. It's like, honey, like good for you, but like your life's not that interesting. Like no one cares like about the fucking avocado toast that you had for breakfast, like, or whatever. Like I don't really post on my personal Instagram that much anymore. I'll do some stories sometimes, just like, but I don't like post. I really use Instagram more for like as my portfolio for work and almost like a portfolio for the podcast. Like we have each like episode and that's what it's there for. We're not like Instagram influencers. We're here for a podcast about us talking about our sobriety and our opinions and views on things that are sobriety and addiction related. And sometimes I'll put stories up, like if I make a mocktail, but
like
that's
moments,
just,
you know.
But also I don't want to feel like the sober part of myself runs my life, like because there's so many more facets to me than just like I'm sober. So if I spend all my time creating sober content, like that's just not me. And that is some people, and you can find people like sober content, like sober influencers out there. That ain't me.
Yeah, and I think also just in the Instagram versus reality, I was thinking about like my preconceived notions about what sobriety was going to look like versus actually living through it. And I feel like what I thought it being in recovery was going to be like in the beginning versus what it is now is also very different. Like when you first got sober, what did you think sobriety was going to be like? Because like I had a very negative opinion about what I thought my life was going to be like. I thought it was going to be devoid of fun and joy and love and connection.
Yes.
And the
100%.
reality is much different.
Yes. I also was like, just thought it was like a very shameful thing. And like, I was going to have to go and like live under a rock and was going to, like you said, be devoid of like fun and stuff. And it's like, oh no, that's like, you can still have fun. You can still, you can live your best life, or you're like truly live your best life and be sober. But like, there's a lot of ugly that comes with all the, you know, the fucking pretty stuff too. Like you said, it's not just like wrapped up in a bow. Like, so I think that it wouldn't be fair to only show like the positive and good sides of it if you're not also, if you're going to be putting all of your sobriety out there and like you want to be a sober influencer and post about sobriety all the time, and if you're not going to be real about it, that's where like the problem is. And it's like, it doesn't have to be the super negative thing. It's probably not going to be, but it also isn't going to always be sunshine and roses. Like I kind of fall in between. Like you've got those two kind of mentalities of what it would be like, right? Like you've got the old school, like, oh, you're an alcoholic, shame on you, da da da. And then you have the like, I live my best life and I do yoga and I like hike and stuff. So I feel like it's just neither one of those is real life.
Right.
I don't know.
But I think what's interesting also is that I had a very dim outlook on what I thought my life was going to be like because I had a drinking problem. And now I look at, just if I look at all of my accomplishments in the time of being sober, it's almost like, I don't know how to explain this, because it's almost like you're reaping all of the Instagrammed aspirations, but in real life. Like if somebody would have told me, Kate, you're going to be able to work for yourself and, get your shit together financially to, buy a house, like all of that shit was like the Instagram version of aspiration that I was actually able to do through being sober. And I was actually thinking it was just going to be the opposite, that I was going to be, white knuckling and clinging on forever, carrying around this like trash bag of shame of all this shit that I did when I was drunk. And that will, it slowly not faded into the background. I remember it, and I learned from it, but all of this good has come from my life subsequently. I haven't felt the need to really like put it on social media. I talk about it here in the context of, the ups and downs involved of it. But I feel like the concept for me, it was almost like the reverse, right? Like on Instagram, everybody's posting these really pretty pictures of them going through sobriety. In reality, for me, it was really dark, but my life overall got more like, more Instagrammable big things happened, like these big monumental things. And that was through, really just time and, going through the darkness and having the confidence to make different choices. And like, if somebody had told you that you would have your own shop and, work for yourself, like that's entirely born out of the choices that you made in sobriety. And, though you don't post it like a shiny, story about it, like that's, those are the successful origin stories of,
Yeah.
I don't want to say that I feel like I'm living in Instagram, but like my life is so much better now than I thought it was going to be in sobriety, and also now I feel like I have the meaningfulness within myself to not need the external validation for it, I guess, is also the important distinction. Before, I think I needed to post that stuff because I needed,
likes.
Yeah, I wanted the likes, I wanted the attention for it, and I wanted recognition. And now, I feel like the primary thing that I work on in therapy is the self-recognition and the the purpose that you give yourself in the choices that you make and the time that you spend. And that for me has been a very hard lesson, because we all want like a pat on the head along the way. And there's also nothing wrong with that. But I think for me, it's just very much evolved. And I'm glad you've been sort of with me, like in the same mindset, because I feel like we could have also wasted a lot of time, our own time and resources, kind of pursuing a different path that, like to bring it back to my conversation with, Dylan, I was just saying, like, for us, we don't personally get a whole lot of posting on social media. A lot of like, we thoroughly enjoy talking to one another and putting out the podcast. We had to make a decision at a certain point when our lives became busy, that it was something neither of us really enjoyed, so we weren't going to do it anymore. And we're choosing not to feel bad about it, and, it also didn't move the needle for our podcast. Likely those people that follow us on Instagram also already listen to the podcast, so we weren't really reaching new people, so it was just an interesting sort of like reflection point of, wow, my life is like, I used to think like I wanted to be the girl in the turtleneck sweater on the couch in the Pinterest drinking the red wine. And my life is much more closer to that without alcohol, but I don't feel the need to like seek that out on Pinterest any longer.
Hey, Kate, what's another way that the squad can help support the podcast?
In addition to just listening or signing up to our Patreon, y'all can shop our online merch store, which has a variety of different sober treats, from mugs to sweatshirts to tanks and tees.
Everything.
All of our signature sayings are all over our sober merch. So visit seltzersquadshop.com and check it out.
Treat yourself to something sober while supporting the pod.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes. I was going to say something and now I lost it. Damn, I hate when that happens. Oh, well.
What do you think are your most Instagrammable reality, like, not comparisons, but like what has surprised you the most about yourself in sobriety in the accomplishments that you've gotten?
I don't know.
Just
That's
a small
hard.
question.
I feel like, I don't know.
Like if you would have told me in week 1 of getting sober that like eventually you would be on a totally different career path and in grad school, I would have been like, no fucking way. Like there's no way I would have gotten my shit together, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like
100%.
It's not glamorous, but it's certainly like a very monumental, you know, slow turning ship that is in the making that I only have space for because I'm not drinking and creating chaos in my life.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I would not have believed you. Um, even if I knew I had the capacity, I wouldn't have wanted to put the time and effort in because that would cut into my partying lifetime, you know? But now it's like I'm actually like have something to be proud of. And like, it's weird because it's like you're doing all these things, but I have more to show for myself and more to be proud of, but I feel I'm also more humble than I was when I was drinking. Like, I don't know. Maybe because I was always.
Do you think it's because you like yourself more, this version of yourself more, so you don't need?
I was just going to say, like you mentioned about like the self-validation and so like maybe I just was always looking for validation and people to like me. And but I had nothing to show for it. So it's like, oh, my winning personality, please. So, I don't know. I just, like you said, I'm just such a different person. It's like, it's kind of gross. Like, oh, I would like post pictures for attention. Like, oh, I thought it was like, oh my God, I'm so funny. I'm so drunk. Like, what is that? Like, what is the mentality behind that? I don't know. So I just don't feel like I need that sort of validation from other people or attention from other people anymore. And like you said, maybe it's just because I'm like more at peace of who I am as a person now. Like I'm more comfortable with myself. I'm more comfortable in my own skin. I know who I am as a person. I'm very self-aware and I don't need, I mean, like you said, everyone likes recognition sometimes. But it's not like the number one priority in my life to get likes and follows.
Yeah.
It just
in
isn't.
fact, I feel as though part of my sobriety is learning how to be disliked because I think I used to bend and waver and, you know, manipulate myself to be what I thought everybody wanted me to be part of, you know, all of it. And now like I've had to learn how to make those distinctions because I need to respect myself more and draw my own lines and boundaries and not get walked all over and people please myself to death. That it's again, you know, sort of the opposite of what it was. But it's, I mean, I was just thinking about you and your sobriety and me and like, you know, even since we started the podcast and how much our lives have changed, not because of the podcast, but because of also, you know, therapy and putting in the work and then also having the courage and taking risks that I don't think either of us would have ever even thought of had we still been where we were, you know, partying and drinking, closing down the bars together. Like I remember when you were going to quit your shop and start your own thing and like how much, you know, thought and feeling went into that. And now to fast forward and see, you know, you're now not only like already been there, done that, but got a better, you know, situation and a better shop. And, you know, you're much more focused on the growth of that through, you know, social media and stuff like that, where you're just a lot more focused and all these good things have come from it because you had the confidence in yourself to take the risk. And the confidence came from clearing the space of all the noise of our drinking days. It's crazy. It's not like I think to kind of bring it back to the Instagram versus reality, like it's not an overnight thing. Like it's taken a long time and a lot of teeny tiny choices and, you know, setbacks and more risks. And, you know, sometimes things don't work out the way that we thought that they would, but it's really cool now to kind of like look back over and I'm like, oh wow, like I have much more pride and confidence in myself that I don't need recognition for anymore. And I've done way more than I ever fucking thought I would. Like, I don't think I'm like living the life of my dreams, but I'm certainly living like beyond the dreams that I had for myself when I was drinking.
Like, do you feel like back when we first got sober or like whatever, any little crumb of something positive, would you post about it? And now it's like you got the whole cake and it's like, I don't need to like post about it because
I mean, I
don't
think
need to.
along with that came, you know, not wanting to put my success in people's faces either. So again, that goes back to your like humility, right? Like I want to be aware of like obviously my privilege, but also, you know, I don't necessarily feel the need to put my wins out there anymore because I can simply enjoy them. And yeah, I don't know. It's just so strange. I think when I used to post on Instagram, like I've wavered for a really long time, like years, about like, you know, we all want that. We get that like little fart up our butt about wanting to be an influencer, and you're like, I'm going to post all the time and I'm going to like, you know, really focus on getting the followers. And I think, you know, we're also of that age group of the rise and fall and the whole Instagram
100%.
influencer thing, to where I think we've all sort of toyed and toggled with that. But I think once I was able to get sober and quiet all the noise and really zero in on the kind of life that I wanted to have, I'm more focused on getting the kind of life that I want to have than somebody patting me on the head for it. For like the journey, you know, like I'm more focused on, you know, I think there's also the Instagram versus reality of like, the reality is I'm like a middle-class white lady and I'm probably not going to be like Charlie D'Amelio, and us all wanting to be rich and famous is great, but what if I just want like a regular good life? You know, I just want like a regular good life where I have enough money to pay my bills and time to spend with my friends and family and, you know, money to buy cat food.
I think we're like I think it's called growth. I think we're just growing. We're like, don't need to be like, want to have like be rich and famous. I mean, okay. I mean, if
sure.
it happened, if it came
you
my
never
way,
know when Drake is going to retweet you, but like,
wouldn't kick it out of bed. But even when we first started the podcast, like little things like I would almost like I was bragging, but I was just happy. Like, I don't know, let's say I bought a Gucci bag or something, like, and then I like traded myself, like, I'm just, that's just so not me anymore. It's just like weird. It's just like, I kind of get grossed out by, I don't listen to our old podcast, but
I cringe.
If I were to, it's cringe. But even when we first started, we obviously wanted to get like Instagram followers and stuff. Like that's a natural want and need. But now it's just like, we used to like want to get Instagram followers and from our listeners. Yeah. But now it's like, if we get Instagram followers, we just want them to be listeners. Like it's all about the podcast. It's not about Instagram, because what is this? What is our Instagram without the podcast? It's nothing. What's the fucking point? So
yeah, I think it's also an important distinction too. Like I was saying to, you know, Dylan, like it may also seem like it's a very large, you know, revenue generating operation, when in reality, like this is a very small piece of our lives and it makes enough money to sustain itself. And that's the only reason why we still do it, because, you know, we get a lot of satisfaction talking to each other, and we get the most satisfaction knowing that people are connecting with one another and pursuing their recovery journey. And hopefully if we're able to like soften the edges for them along the way, great. But again, it's the Instagram versus reality of like, the reality is I'm sitting in my closet, you're sitting in your basement, we're, you know, chatting to each other about our wins and losses. So to anybody that sort of feels overwhelmed by the shininess of winning, and if you don't feel like you're winning in sobriety, I just feel like examine your definition of winning. And now when I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm fucking crushing sobriety. Like I've done so much shit. Like I feel like I'm crushing crushing in life in a lot of ways. Not to say that there certainly aren't like summertime sadness and, winter blues and
that's going to be there
for sure, failures, but the confidence in taking the risks is probably the best Pinterest vibe of it all.
Yeah. Well said. And also someone who's only and constantly posting like shiny boat, like, that's their life probably isn't as great as they're trying to make it appear. They're probably overcompensating. And people who rarely post might be because they're living life and doing their thing. You never know. You never know. Grass is always greener. Instagram versus reality. Everything sucks and then you die.
Until we meet again.
Being nice to yourself.
And don't forget, hangover suck.
Hangover suck.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Every review helps other listeners find us. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Kate Sander. For show notes and resources, check out seltzersquad.com.